Good morning. Hello, welcome to This World Gamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to a weekend of TTS Age of Sigmar coverage. I'm joined by Mr. Joe Cryer. Hi, Joe. How you doing?
Hello, how are you? I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm awake.
Are we doing this?
Ready to go?
Are we weaving it up? Yeah? This is what we're doing.
Always.
So very excited here to be live from Copenhagen. Mr. Tiga, thank you for subscribing. For a 5-round battle of Age of Sigmar, the Battle of Copenhagen, the Battle for Copenhagen. Now, it's an event that runs in real life, but because of COVID, has been transitioned over to the gorgeous TTS. So loads and loads to unpack here. Really fun game to kick off. 50 players in this event. We did a list review show yesterday. If you type !event in the chat, you'll get a listing of all the pairings and everything else. There's some notable names. There's some legends. There's some bad guys. There's some good armies. There's only 2 Seraphon armies. There's loads of KO. It's going to be a great weekend. Me and Joe are going to be covering the first game. Second game is going to be me and Vince. Third game is going to be me and the lovely Dan. And then tomorrow it's me and Adam Mumford all day. So it's going to be super fun. Super fun weekend. Very much looking forward to it. And let's go get Denmark on the Age of Sigmar map is what we're doing. Joe, these 2 armies that we're about to see, playing focal points. We've got Nurgle versus Lumineth Realm Lords. What are your initial thoughts on a matchup like this?
45 Blight Kings is terrifying, but Lumineth have damage 5 attacks in plenty, it looks like. So that's at least a Blight King per attack that gets through. But we're going to see. It's going to be... can they kill them all? The game, I think, is what the plan is right now.
Agreed. Right, let's go over to that game and you guys can see along with us. So the guys are just deploying now. We're going to get along with the lists. Big shout out to everyone who has joined us live, though. Furor, Tom Sembu, Svend, my man, me and Svend in the Shark team now. We're Sharks all day. Dwarf Penguin, whoop whoop, love you tons. Warhammer TV intern, thanks for telling us that the Dubulf Forward has subscribed. I hope you're all well. I'm sitting with 4 guys around me playing in the tournament, sitting in the TO Discord chat, and here on the stream. Damn, that's a lot of audio input, Mr. Tiger, I can imagine. Bless your heart. They're actually, some of the guys over in Denmark are actually doing a LAN party, because they're allowed to do so, while doing TTS, which I think is super fun. So really looking forward to that. Right, so let's talk about these lists. 2 lists. You've got Kim, Raw Bergen? I don't know how to say it. I'm so sorry. But Kim. Kim is playing with a Ymetrica Lumineth Realm Lords list. Now, he's got an Alrith Stone Mage, obviously, and then he's got Teclis. But the big pick is Avlanor, the Stoneheart King, there is in that list, along with the Alrith Spirit of the Mountain. So 2 big monsters and Teclis. Battle line, really low on the board there. 3 times 5 Stone Guard, and we're done. Yeah.
They ignore Ren 2, and let's hope that their bold strategy works out for them, right? Like, yeah.
It's 19 models. It's 19 models in this list. Yeah.
He wants to get in and out and back to the day, I guess.
He's just like, paint this up quick.
Play for an hour and we're done. Like, that's it. We're out.
So yeah, 19 models in this list. That we're going to be looking at, and so loads of fun. There is some limited shooting coming out from. You don't really expect it. Teclis in there as well, so he's got the Umbral Spell Portal, so the Technado's available. All of the debuffing spells are available that we're going to get coming out of Teclis. So lots of board control. But it's a bit of a conversation that we were having yesterday when we did the list review show, Joe. Is that there's a lot of MSU in Age of Sigmar at the minute. There's a lot of MSU armies. There's a lot of like small, like screening pieces. Shadow Stonkers are strong. People are taking 10-man units for all sorts of different stuff. We're seeing lots of that. That's up against what can only be described as a brick wall, a meat slab. Yeah, like because because they're really interesting armies, right? Because there's this delicate, fine balance. And you think, oh, I'll just do 5 damage here. That'll take out the support piece, and it's like, no, this is 2 units of 20 Blight Kings. Yeah, just just a wall of iron and hate. Another unit of 5 Blight Kings, 45 Blight Kings in the Blight Cyst. Then there's a Great Unclean One. There's a Lord of Blights, and there's Be'lakor, soon to be reinvigorated and reimagined. But that is a meaty 211 wounds spread over 48 models, which is very different to the the 18 models it's against. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
what do you?
that
Go on, Joe.
less wounds, less models. This is going to be. I think we talked about that last time too. Actually, we had a very very high, despairingly different model count list that we ran with last time.
Yeah,
and the lower model count did pull it out. So let's see if we can go 2 for 2 maybe.
that's all we need.
Or do you think the Blight King has got it? What do you think, Rob? What do you think?
Well, so there's lots to unpack really about these different forces. Let's look at the battle plan and see what we're playing here. Now we're playing focal points. Now the TOs have amended this a little bit, as you may notice looking at the top down. The actual objectives are a little bit further apart than they normally are. So the two at the top and the 2 at the bottom. Nurgle being at the bottom of my screen, Joe, just as a reference for us talking about the map. Is so they're separated. They're further apart from the middle. Now, this is a good mission for monsters. You get a bonus point if you hold an objective. There is only 1 on Nurgle side. There are 3 over on the Lumineth Romelord side. Lumineth Romelord, though, are in Metrica. They are nails hard. The Stone Guard are ignoring rend of 2, which is kind of funny because Nurgle hasn't got any rend anyway.
The Blight just gave him 1 for a cheeky little knife, but not
it's
anymore.
True.
Not worth it. Not worth it.
Yeah. So you might be noticing that the level of the modelling actually done on the board and generally amongst the armies is quite high. There's actually a Best Painted award. So trying to, as a really clever way of making the community generally uptick. To making it so that the armies are in TTS generally look better. Very clever of the organisers to make it so that there's a Best Painted. So this army actually has been scanned in by his friend. Look at the little mushroom braces. So the TTS models on for Age of Sigmar are going they're very good. They're really
which is a lot
upskilling.
better than those the cockatrices that we've been seeing, the 2-dimensional cockatrices. I've seen a 2-dimensional Archeon. It's just sad, but this is lovely to.
It helps bring this back into the world, right? Like it looks a bit more real. Yeah. I know you asked who do I think's got it. Now you're just going to rack up more points very quickly. With the Lumineth Realm Lords. Bodies are going to be a major issue, but they've only really got the Nurgle have only really got those 2 threats, those 2 big bricks of Blight Kings. I don't know if there's enough output really in the Lumineth Realm Lords army to go through it. What do you think? Like it's a lot that he's got to have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that I'm like concerned for the Lumineth here is that not only do they fight through that 215 wounds of Blight Kings, they also have summoning to back themselves up later, like late game, right? So they can actually leave their side pretty much uncontested, and then drop 5, Plague Bears here, 5 Plague Bears there, just to sit on objectives and add more models to the count and more wounds to the count on who is controlling objectives. So yeah,
it's going to be really, really positive. I think the Lumineth are in it. They've got some massive damage coming out though. The Stoneheart Worldhammer that we're going to see on the Alarith Spirit of the Mountain, flat 5 damage from 4 attacks. Could see 20 damage come out of there at Ren 2. Now that's if he's unwounded, and of course this is probably going to be the really important fella right here. He looks pretty relaxed. I won't lie. The Stone Mage. He looks pretty chill. He's not too stressed about life. But there he is, and he's going to make it so that the Alarith Stone Mountains are going to fight on their top bracket all the time. So that's going to be some raw output. Then there's so many other things coming out. Commandability coming out of Alvlanor. D3 units get +1 attack. You can add an additional rend onto the Stone Mage if they're wholly within 12 inches. What else can we do? The mountain stance...
Does that make the mountains like the mountain goats? Does that make them 5 attacks, so 25 damage per hammer swing?
No, so the command ability is only applicable to the elves. Yeah, only applicable to the elves. It doesn't buff themselves.
It's a little nicer.
It is a little bit nicer. They're going to be ignoring rend of 2 if they're in mountain stance. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciated. So yeah, we're also but on the other side for Nurgle, don't forget the Dark Prince himself is here. So the Dark Prince deployed in this corner. There he is, looking very thematic, hidden under this tree. As Be'lakor.
In the shadow of the tree, the Shadow Prince himself is just big, chilling.
Yeah, it's just chilling and relaxing. So the roll-off, both players the same number of drops. So there was a roll-off at the start. It's going to get from our table boss who gets the choice now. And Nurgle have got the choice, and they're taking the first turn. So it's time for a guess. Joe, Twitch chat. Mm-hmm. It's time to guess. Who are you rooting for? Who's your money on?
I'm gonna go with the bit of the underdog Nurgle. They've had some come ups recently, and I think this is their time to shine. Now that Lumineth are getting a little bit too arrogant there with the 18 models. I think Nurgle's gonna be able to pull this one out. Oh,
you think? Okay, mm-hmm. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the idea here, the battle plan for Nurgle is very obvious. It's going to be just swamp into the middle of the board and just be like, cool, here we go. Now, there's some defensive buffs available to Nurgle here in the Wither Stave that we've got on the Great Unclean one, which is super good. So that's units. Any units wholly within... just any units within 12 inches are going to be -1 to hit. And that's going to create
reroll 6s to hit.
Oh, reroll 6s. Sorry, thank you. Reroll 6s to hit, which is, I think, really good, right?
Yeah, no, super solid.
Yeah,
there's no mortal wounds on 6s here, but it's still like it helps lessen what you're about to take in combat there. Especially when they only have 4 attacks. If you're making them give up those 6s to hit, it's good. It's going to be a big deal for those mountains.
It is going to be. Yeah, it's going to be really hard for those guys. And I think also getting into Teclis's face and generally the Lumineth Realm Lord's face before they can get any buffs up is good. But they're outside. I'm pretty certain, as we can see here, they're going to be outside of charge range. They haven't given them or allowed them to charge. So what we're going to be seeing is, I think, just running into the middle of the board. And then I guess just accepting that they're going to take the kicking back, I think is going to be the idea. So we've just seen Glorious Afflictions has been cast on Alvalnor. And don't forget, one of these models, one of these 3 models has been Be'lakor. So it's got an ability. Joe, can you tell us how Be'lakor works?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the game, the Be'lakor player secretly writes down a unit on the opponent's side of the table. And then at the start of one of the opponent's turns, you reveal that choice, even if Be'lakor is dead. So even if they were able to snipe Be'lakor off the table, he still gets to do this. And for the next, until your next turn, so if they double you, it can actually happen twice. That unit has to roll a 5+ in order to do pretty much anything except for prayers. They can do those just fine. But everything else, casting, moving, charging, fighting, even if they're in combat, like shooting, they need to roll a 5+ to do literally anything.
Uh-oh. So here we go. This is looking pretty positive for Nurgle straight off the bat, Joe. We've got a run of a 6. Yep. Yeah. Now, don't forget the Blight Kings. The Blight Kings can run and charge because of the Feculent Nalmor. So they've got this big 6-inch run on top of their base move. So they move 10 inches now, right? Because their base move 4. Pretty certain on Blight Kings. But then they've obviously got +3 from the Doom Bell that you've got from the Great Unclean one as well. So that's
Yep.
added to that range. So that gives it, like, a lot of people are always surprised by the movement of Nurgle, Joe. Like, I know you've played against it a lot, but something you've always got to be very conscious of, right?
They're so fast. Like you wouldn't expect it, and then all of a sudden they're just flying across the table. And then and this Nurgle army is playing Blessed Suns, so they do have another free run 6 inches if they felt like it off a second unit for that command ability out of the Wrath of the Everchosen.
Yeah, they do. They do. So they're going super fast. So that charge looks like the Stone Mage is for it, I think, is the answer. I don't know. I don't think the Nurgle wheel. I don't know if we know where the Nurgle wheel is at the moment on the cycle. So the cycle of corruption. So the allegiance.
He's actually got a little token on the table. There we go. He's on Unnatural Vitality.
Okay.
Let's add 2 to the move. So yeah, everything is +2 move right now.
So +2 move.
Super.
Yeah. So there's an additional +2 move that we're seeing on there. So they've gone 16 inches in total. 16 inches in total before they charge. But they started out. They started out at movement 4. They started out at movement 4. Don't forget.
Faster than Slanesh. Nice, nailed it.
Yeah, so fast. So yeah, they're super fast, and this is just going to be this unit. And it looks like they've got so many options for the charge, right? They've got the Stone Guard on the objective. They can go into the Stone Mage, and they've also got Alvanor available. And I think one of the interesting things here is all of the output that the Lumineth Realm Lords Geometric army can bring has to be put into like a unit at a time. They don't have the time over the match to put all of the output to spread the damage out. They've got to bring all of it over, and that's going to leave either of those objectives fairly poorly defended with just 5 Stone Guard. Now, I know that that's 10 wounds, and I know that they ignore Rend 2, and I know...
It's a models game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a model, but I think it's a models game, and we'll see how this goes. Depending on the role, they could even go into Techless. That's right, big charge, jump into Techless. Now, don't forget, they can still, if they want to, they can still also use... They've still got their Aether Quartz available to them, so they could still use it to give a unit +1 save. So they just can't use it as often as Sire use it. So they're going to be... they can make one of those units very survivable. That Stone Mage is in cover already. So I think he could be in a really good place, Joe. I don't know about you, to survive that damage.
Yeah. Reducing damage coming in, being +1 save on top of everything, ignoring all of the Rend that the Blight Kings could have had. Yeah, he might be there to survive, but also they might just not care. I mean, it's just 20 dudes. If they just take this left objective here, then they could just screen out the rest of them and hold 2 objectives at the same time, with only fighting 5 dudes. I think that's the play for them. Honestly.
Yeah. I think so. So the Elder Stone Mage only got 5 up save, so in cover 4 up, if he uses the token 3 up. Ignoring the Rend is still probably going to be far too many attacks. Blight Kings, one of the reasons we see Blight Kings so often is because it's just so many wounds. 500 points for 80 wounds, sorry. 80 wounds in that unit on a 4 up save is... bonkers. Okay,
yeah.
So go on, Joe.
And the interesting part about this too is that this army of Lumineth ignore the Rend from the Blight Kings, but if they do end up killing them, like these mountains could easily take out a Blight King or 2 per swing, right? Every time one of these models dies in combat, they actually want that to happen because on a 2+, they'll deal a mortal wound back to the unit that's actually taken it. So.
Agreed. Yeah.
If only having 5 models per unit, having the big monsters, like if they're killing them in combat, it's not good for them.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so the one of the things to talk about is the output that we get from the Blight Kings, and it's fairly significant at the end of the day. It's a lot of attacks. So it's 3 attacks each. It's 3s and 3s, but the most important part is the special rule, which is the blighted weapons. So any 6s to hit are going to cause D6 hits afterwards. So, and that's a lot of attacks coming out of the unit. 60 attacks. So really, you should generate 10 D6 additional attacks on top, which is pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So, just so you know, Joe, the other unit of Blight Kings, thinking it might be slow, has run an addition. It's gone 16 inches as well. 16 inches across the board in addition. So they're very, very fast. Looking to use that Feculent Gnarlmaw, which is the terrain piece, which is in the middle of all these buttons. Apparently, each individual model needed a button, which looks a bit rough. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, that Feculent Gnarlmaw giving run and charge to the whole Nurgle army. I think that's going to be pretty potent, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right. Okay. Good. So, what do you think about the output and the survivability of the Lumineth, Joe? Do you think that they've got the ability to survive this?
I think the mountains will have all the monsters and Tychus will have a better chance, but the fact that killing these Blight Kings in combat, plus the Blight Kings will be trying to kill you in combat, is both the negative thing for them. So like again with their with these hammers on both the elves and the cows, like they'll be dealing mortal wounds back to themselves. It's kind of the same thing, not the same thing, but it's very similar to the Plague Touch Warband, and we've seen how good that's been, right? So taking damage back when you're trying to kill opponents is just it's going to be interesting to see if they, with such a low model count army, it'll be interesting to see if they can actually bring that back.
It's true. It's true. For every one of those 19 models that they lose from the Lumineth Realm Lord's army, they are struggling on the objective as is. So, but it's all about those big monsters that are in the list. Now, Teclis is normally brought as like a force multiplier, so a unit that makes everyone around him better. But he's got none of those buffs up yet, so we haven't seen Protection of Teclis, so that 5-up DPR save in a big bubble. We haven't seen that applied yet. So that's not up, so he's not going to be ignoring any of that damage, which would be a really big deal. The Alarith Stone Spirit of the Mountain is tanky. It's got 12 wounds with a 3-up save, so it's super survivable, which I think is really good. What else can it do? It's got... So it's just really, really survivable. And then the Stoneheart King, Alvlanor, is 14 wounds on a 3-up save. So Alvlanor is in the middle. So there we go. So yeah, I think there's loads of pressure being put on here by Nurgle, looking to push into the opponent and just saying, you need to beat us, because all he has to do is hold on to that center objective and those back 2 objectives for 3 turns. So all he's got to do is just got to wait for hope those Blight Kings can hold on for 3 turns, and then he's all good. He's just ready to rock, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you do when when you're writing your list, Joe? How do you try to solve the problem of people throwing this many wounds at you this quickly? Do you have options? Because really, what this Blight King list is a DPS check, right? It's a damage check. How much damage can I put into an enemy army really early? Do you have any options normally for this?
So a lot of this, is they're getting real close for comfort, right? So a lot of the scout abilities where you're able to move before the game starts, to put a barrier in between your softer backline stuff or the more important horde units that you might have to hold objectives later on, can actually hang out behind that and avoid these first turn alpha strikes like this. There's also been a lot of my lists will have. These are 3 drops, so very, very respectable in that. So, but low drop lists that are able to alpha and take out the key support pieces, and then are still able to back off, put up a castle again, and then let the opponents come forward, and then if they double. Hopefully that castle is usually designed in order to hold out throughout the through the double, and then they should all be in range of all of my damage at that point, and then retaliate at that point. So take out support pieces early, and then take out the rest of it once there's no more battle shock immunity. It has been a pretty big tactic of mine recently. Just have something that's fighty enough to not care.
So inspiring presence on this army obviously going to be really important. And he's only got 1 command point, so that's the ability to make one of these units immune to battle shock. He's only down to 1 command point now. There's also a bit of a race against time also for the Lumineth Realm Lords, in that they have a bit of an issue that Nurgle has got summoning. So they're already sat on 6 contagion points, ready to summon. So they can put some Plague Bearers on these back objectives at some point if they really want to. They could even threaten with some Plague Bearers in like the backfield at some point as well. So not doing bad on the contagion points, which is cool. And there's also the cycle of corruption as well. There's loads more mortal wounds that we could see come in. The Great Unclean One is going to be fine, I think, now behind 160 wounds of Blight King. I think he's safe. Ultimately, for a long time. And that Wither Stave.
Let's hope.
That Wither Stave is going to be important. Now, a super low roll has just come in for the Blight Kings. What they wanted was a big roll, right? They wanted to get into Teclis. They wanted to get into the Stone Mage. Maybe they didn't. Who knows? But he's rolled a 5. How do you feel about that, Joe? Are you good with that? He sat on 1 CP, so he did have a re-roll, or would you leave it?
Yeah, I think because he made the charge, and at this point in the game, I think just taking those objectives early, making sure that he's ahead enough that he is able to make some mistakes later, I think is a really big deal. And this is what, so 3 in the middle, 4 plus another 3, so we're looking at 7 points on the first turn. Very Nurgle of him, it's looking like the Lumineth might only get 1 on the first turn. That's a negative of 6 that he's got to come back from. Like, that's a huge swing, and the Lumineth haven't even gone yet. And we already know what they can come back with, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough play for them for sure.
So both armies are a 3-drop army. However, the roll-off was won by Nurgle. So this could have been that 1 single dice roll at the start of the game could have changed the shape of this game massively. Lumineth almost always in the right situation. They want to go first. They want to get that buff up from Teclis. Teclis got a spell that he can do. He can just choose to do. He doesn't even have to cast it. And that will give a 5-up DPR, so a 5-up damage prevention roll in a bubble around Teclis. So basically just adds a third of the wounds onto this army. This army is very, very survivable. In that situation, I know it looks like a lot versus not a lot, but there's 2 wounds in each of these elves for some unknown reason. For some unknown reason. Say that again, Matt. And then they also all the Stone Guard also have reroll saves if they're within 12 inches of a hero. So those reroll saves are going to be super important as well. They also have got an item, well, sort of like a special resource called Aether Quartz, so they would be able to add +1 to that save as well. So a 3-up rerollable save, and they ignore rend of up to 2, and there's only rend 1 in this army. So like they can tank a lot more than you would think. And with that 5-up DPR, they'd be super survivable. It'd be a big attrition battle. Their output though, medium. It's medium at best. They've got rend of 1. Oh, wow. So we've only seen 1 charge here. 1 charge come out of that unit. So as much as we saw this aggressive Nurgle rush, I think the chat are talking about, there's only been this small engagement on this top left objective, Joe. A weak charge, which is fair. They ran 16 inches. They're tired. Their base move is 4. Yeah, they quadrupled their movement. So
dwarves are just looking at him like, how do you do this?
Now, an interesting thing also is whether or not the Stone Guard elect. Okay, so the unit of Stone Guard that have been charged have had Avlanor's command ability cast on them, Joe, which is +1 attack. So he's not very worried about the output. I wonder if he's used his Aether Quartz Reserve for +1 save. I don't know if he's used that yet. So that's going to put them on... Okay, so he doesn't have reroll saves either. So he's outside of 12 inches for reroll saves with this unit on the far left. So he doesn't have the reroll saves.
And you put an extra attack on them. I wonder if he knows that the Blessed Suns will do mortal wounds back to him, and he doesn't have his DPR yet. So I wonder if he just doesn't know what's going to happen at this point.
Maybe. I mean, it's not going to be a lot. What's he going to get in? He's going to get in that's 3.5 inches. Come on, let's sort that out. So he's only going to get attacked with 5? That's 15 attacks. Yeah, they've got exploding 6s into D6, but it's probably okay. That's not loads of output. Egg on my face when the whole unit gets lifted.
What I'm saying is that the +1 attack on the Stone Guard doing more damage to these Blight Kings will actually do mortal wounds back to himself.
That's
so
true.
It's going to be he's only got 10 wounds there and 5 models. So the first 2 wounds through, he's in a world of hurt, right?
It's true. It's true. He also has already taken that objective, right? He's outnumbered that unit already. Right, so we're going to have 5 Blight Kings attack now. I mean, the counterpunch could be pretty devastating, but like I said, he has to put all of his pressure in early. I wonder if he'll just roll the flank. I wonder if he'll just roll the flank. Oh, did he get no 6s? Oh. Oh, wait, so he rolled 2 exploding 6s. Those exploding 6s turn into D6 attacks, Joe. D6 attacks, and he rolled an additional 8. So 9 saves. So many. 9 saves going into the Stone Guard now. Let's see how they do. And they've got a 4-up save on this situation. Oh, they've lost. They've lost 2.5 of the 5-man unit already. That's rough. That is rough.
Not bold strategy, Lumineth. Yeah. We'll see how that plays out.
I would say, Joe.
I just want to say, Dwarf Penguin in the chat. These elves got an extra wound because of their hats, so that's a good call out there. 1 wound for the elf, 1 wound for the hat. Very important. Very important.
A lot. I think the current Lumineth lore kind of fanfic is there's actually a smaller elf inside the hat controlling the bigger elf, and that's the additional wound. I don't know. I think
that makes sense.
It's from the same writer as 50 Shades of Grey, so I'm not 100% certain that is spot on. I feel like it might be. So the swing back. Now let's look at the board.
What you're saying is that inside the hat are those little cookie making elves, and then there's the Lord of the Ring elf in the wearing the hat, right?
Let's talk about the smackback and what we could do here. I think he could just rotate the flank. What he could do is he could take the 2 big beasties, so Alvlanor and the Stone Mountain, smash into the middle, screen out with the Stone Guard, and then just use Teclis to back that up, and then punch through into the middle would be maybe what he could do right now. But it's still looking pretty rough, right? The Blight Kings have got a 4-up save, and they've got 4 wounds apiece. So in this brick of 20 Blight Kings, which is 500 points, you're looking at 80 wounds. 80 wounds spread over 20 models on a 4-up save.
And the champion has an extra one. So it's 81 wounds per squad, right? It's unreasonable.
It's very unreasonable. Now we've seen 4 wounds only done back from the Stone Guard. They've killed a Blight King, which means they're going to roll a dice on a 2-up. So that's the big question.
Kill a 3rd elf.
They do. They will kill on a 2-up. They'll kill a 3rd elf if they decide. They could also push back a unit now, but I don't think they're going to. I think is going to be the answer.
I'm not sure it's going to matter too much for them.
Okay, so Bravery 7 on the Stone Guard here. Good. Okay, positive. Right, so what we're seeing now is the Bravery check. They've lost There we go. There's the board, Joe. Joe, if you were the Teklian player now, if you were playing with the Alarith Temple, what would you do? What would be your strategy? Looking at Nurgle at the bottom and Teclis at the top.
I think your play there is the right one, because this, you're gonna have to get, what is it here? Oh,
keep going though. What would you do, Joe?
Be'lakor is so important. So this objective here, because you're on the Nurgle side here. So on the top left is almost just gone. It's only got one. It's got one unit on it. And this one in the middle here is going to be worth more for you. So, and they're holding I guess one, because you got the extra 5-pack down here. But this middle one is worth more for you. So I think your idea to push the middle and the right hand flank here, and just kind of trade board sides, is probably the play for them. So what they need to do right now is just wipe out a unit a turn, right? I think 20 models this turn, 20 models next turn, in order to bring the model count back in line with each other. But we did just see Be'lakor do his Be'lakor business.
Yes.
On the Spirit of the Mountain Avalorn here.
So not on Avalor.
Plus.
So on Alarith, on the Alarith Spirit of the Mountain. So the Be'lakor's ability means that when he chooses to charge, move, or fight, he's going to have to roll a 5 up to be able to do so. So it's not guaranteed that that's going to happen, but it could affect. So this Alarith Spirit of the Mountain is currently an unreliable piece in the battle plan here, which is going to be really tough, and maybe means he can't affect this unit of 20 Blight Kings. Now, in the hero phase for Lumineth Realm Lords, we're seeing some output from Teclis himself. So Teclis able to choose to cast one spell automatically, 2 spells on 11, or 4 casts on a 10+, and he's decided to go for the 4 casts on a 10+. Not scared about Nurgle's ability to unbind him at all, and he's already put out protection of Teclis. No, I wouldn't be either. So he's already put out protection of Teclis, so that's a 5-up DPR now, army-wide. He's also doing his War Scroll spell, which is... So he's also doing his War Scroll spell known as the Technado, Storm of Searing White Light, which picks each unit within 18 inches, and you roll a dice. If he rolls a 6, Joe, D6 mortal wounds into that unit. He's chosen 3 units so far.
That's really good.
Yeah,
D6 mortal wound spells, really good. Really good.
Thanks, Gitley. I think you're right. However, he's chosen 3 different units, and he has rolled a 1 for each one of those units. So he's done no damage with the Technado. That's really
Thanks, Teclis. We appreciate you for also
Teclis.
being as tired as we might be.
D6 mortals versus 180 wounds. Listen, every wound counts in this battle. This is the way it works, gents.
And it would be 3d6, but versus 180, 3d6 is quite not as much as you might think. But
and if you think this is a lot of wounds, boy, you should see the Bone Splitter list that's in this event. 320 wounds. Now, I've seen
lists like that. They're insane.
Now, a lot of
so many boys.
Yeah, a lot of people think that like maybe that's not a particularly engaging way to play, but most importantly for you guys to realize is that it's a good counter meta pick. I would say, like, it's a good cross pick, because really what you're looking to do is you're looking to produce a problem that your opponent can't do. Sometimes that's a unit of like 3 eels that are just going to get you. Sometimes it's a unit of Shadow Stonkers that go grab your back objective. Sometimes it's an unkillable Marathi. And in this situation for Nurgle, what they really are doing is they're just setting up this like immovable wall, and they're like, can you beat me? It's actually the only way that Mega Gargants can play. So, which is wild. So, yeah, it's not like, it's probably not the most fun, but it's actually been like a consistent playstyle for Nurgle before. Before it was the Blight Kings, it was just bricks of Plague Bearers that would do the same thing. Sometimes you could have and Hammer and Anvil, where you would have something hold an objective like Big Bricks of Plague Bearers or Blight Kings, or you would end up, and then you would have something more fragile that could do lots of output, like let's say Plague Monks. But a lot of that's really unreliable. And Blight Kings do both jobs, right? They're in that what's the word?
Sweet spot points wise.
Yeah, the bruiser role. Like they do both. They tank and they do output. So they're in a very survivable position here. If you guys would like to see who's playing, click !event and you'll be able to see who's playing at the event. I'd like to see if any of our strong Danes are participating. I thought all of the Danes were strong, Joe. That's what I thought. Morning, Lee Bromley. Yeah. So there you go. ! Event. That'll bring it up. That'll be good for you. Right. So spells cast. We've seen the Technado failed, and we also saw the
very surprisingly
tech list. Yeah, very surprising. I'm not sure what other spells we got off. We'll check from our table boss in a moment. Okay, so we also got -2 bravery cast on the big unit of Blight Kings here, looking to battle shock them off, which is really good in combination with the next spell that we saw cast, which is Total Eclipse. So Teclis has cast a spell, which means it costs 2 command points to use a command ability, as opposed to 1. So you have to spend twice as much. That is a massive spell, because Nurgle are sat there with 1 command point for immune to battle shock, which means he ran there, he was like, don't worry, I've got this 1 CP, I'm going to make this unit immune to battle shock, this big brick of 20 Blight Kings, and then Teclis was like, no, I am going to battle shock them off the board, baby. Which I think is a really clever play, right? Like, do you think Nurgle maybe forgot about that?
They could have, or they just hoped that he would fail the cast for somehow. One of the two, you know? But like maybe he was hoping that he'd go for the spell portal first, and then and not cast that one. But it's just, especially in an army that can't generate CP, like some others can, you know, and where every command point is important, making that double was the right play here. Because right, like he didn't cast his one endless spell, right? Because he's got the mirrors and he just left him at home. For this round, and I think that was the right play. So,
yeah, I agreed. I think there's lots. I think there's a lot to unpack about this match and maybe the counterplays here, because I think if losing this unit of Blight Kings could be really good. There's a fella in the chat who seems to think that this is means that this game. This one example of Age of Sigmar somehow makes Age of Sigmar not a good game, but I feel like he doesn't really understand the whole meta of the gaming environment, and I encourage him to check out all the other games that we'll be covering over the weekend, because this is a really good anti-MSU meta pick, which is really quite necessary for some of the really well done AOS armies as well. So because they can vary, right? You could actually take all of those wounds on those Blight Kings, you can put them into a singular model in Archeon. You can have like armies split apart, like we're seeing Benjamin Sava's list with the multiple different MSU Daughters of Cain, which I think is a fascinating list, and I can't wait to see how it does. There are some really hot takes. Probably not as good, and nothing as good as the Bladegeist Revenant list. It's probably the best list that's out there.
Some overpowered Night Haunt, definitely.
Oh, here we go. One of my favorite people in the world, Goon Boss TV in the chat, says, imagine playing AOS and not being from New Zealand. Oh my God. Those guys can play. And I'm glad, and I hope, Goon Boss, you and all the other boys are safe, because you've had a bit of a tsunami. So I hope you're all safe and everything's okay over there. Loads of love to everyone over in New Zealand.
Also, I think I got to shout out my mate Justin Curtis of some 40K fame. He said he joined the chat, but I'm not teaching him how to play AOS while also casting the game. 2 out of 10 would not recommend. So I do apologize, Justin, that I can't do everything today.
No, stop it, Justin. Yeah. Right. So Alarith has actually passed his. So he's passed his 5-up to move. So just 2 more 5-ups. We're really rooting for this Alarith temple. Be'lakor over in the corner. Although actually, no, where'd Be'lakor go? Run up.
Yep,
Bellicor
in the middle.
running down
In the
this
middle.
flank, looking to take over this windmill. The Dark Prince himself, the first of the Chaos Demon
from the
Princes.
tree to the windmill.
Yeah, he's affected the Alarith the Alarith Spirit of the Mountain, and he needs to roll a. Wow. Okay, so looking to roll another 5 up to move in to charge, and another 5 up to attack. Now, he also tried to shoot with him, but we're not caring about that. The 5 up. However, Alvlanor did shoot through his rock at the Great Unclean One, 5 damage, but he saved 3 of that damage. But 5 damage from a shooting attack is pretty brilliant. I think a lot of people forget about that. So we're into the charge phase now.
That 5 damage shooting attack in an army that can do mortal wounds at 36 inches. Nice. Important.
Right, so the Stone Guard here, they're going 11 inches, so he's putting them all in. Suggestion in the chat that maybe this unit of Stone Guard here, they retreat out of combat and then they run across to try and grab this. I think they'd just be too slow, I think, ultimately.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they should just keep them locked in combat. I'm not sure. I think they've fallen out, right? I don't know. I think that they might have fallen out.
They look pretty close.
Yeah, I think they're in. They're in. So the Stone Guard are in.
Yeah, because they're in stone stance, right? So they can't pile in. So they're just stuck on that corner there.
He failed it. Oh, so heartbreak. The Dark Prince has worked his magic, and the Alarith Stone Mountain has failed.
Yeah. And it's actually a really interesting play by the Lumineth player to leave this another objective open. For this one Bellicor model to come back and take it, right? Like, all he needs to do is make one charge and potentially even just run, and he can take it from him. And all of a sudden, they'll be scoring every point on the table.
So some sad news that we've just heard, that Alvlanor, because of the spell cast Glorious Afflictions, cast by the Great Unclean One, is unable to make the charge. I think that's right, what we're hearing. Let's just double check. Because his charge is halved, so he's unable to make the charge. So both mountain goat men, primed, ready to countercharge onto this objective. I've got nothing to do. Thank you very much to Gypsy D for subscribing. Oh, Gypsy D gifted a gift subscription. That's lovely. Thanks very much.
Looks like 5 of them. 5, 6. 5 gifts of soup.
5? Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Gypsy D. Congratulations. Thanks for being sweet. Thanks to everyone for joining us live, by the way. This is one match of 25 matches that are happening at the moment in the Battle for Copenhagen, which is a 50-man event happening over the next 2 days over 5 rounds, is what we're going to be seeing. So yeah, we
only have the Stone Guard in combat now, so that, like, this Lumineth player will score 1 objective this turn. So it's going to be a 7-1 point-wise, bottom of 1. That's a rough comeback for Lumineth. And if they try to double, Bellicor's effect is still in play for the spirit of the mountain. So he'll be still rolling those 5 ups to charge, 5 ups to shoot, 5 ups to fight, right? Like, that's, and if he fails those, which is more than likely, he'll fail at least one of those. It's going to be a bad day for the Lumineth player. Because if that's the case, they're going to be sitting on 2 points to 14 minimum, right? And that's just, it's bad. Potentially even 16 points for next turn. So at that point, I don't know if the Lumineth can actually come back. It could be a quick game.
I think it could be a quick game. I mean, like, so one of the things to talk about here is this unit of Stone Guard. Now, it looks like, I mean, it's quite funny, actually. It's 20, like, hulking, diseased monsters up against 5 elven lads. But these 5 elven lads have been training in the temple for a long time, and they are tough as nails. They are re-rolling their save. So they're re-rolling their save. They have a 5-up DPR. They ignore Rend of 2. They are really, really, really tanky. And that 10 wounds might not seem like a lot right now, but I think that they could hold those Blight Kings up for quite a few turns as like a little linchpin unit. Now, it's a shame. The reason we didn't see that happen before is we didn't see Protection of Teclis on this unit of Alarith, and we didn't see them being able to re-roll their saves or turn their skin to stone, which is what they actually do. That's right. So yeah, we didn't see that on the other unit. So then, unfortunately, they lost loads. So the Stone Guard though have managed to, but their output is medium at best. Like it's not bad. So they've had +1 attack, and they've only managed to do 7 damage into the Blight Kings, Joe. That's not bad.
There's only one Blight King. One Blight King out of 20, man.
That is only one Blight King. However, of 81 wounds, that gives us 74 to go out of that unit. We're good.
Oh, gutted.
Okay, so we're now remembering the 2+ for a dead Blight King to see if it does a mortal wound, and it does return a mortal wound back into the Alarith Stone Guard, which is going to be important. And he might save it. He's got that 5-up DPR from Teclis now. At this point, Joe, like,
he doesn't.
Would you not, like, I know he's tried to get those 2 Cowgoat men in, but was unable to do so. He's in a tough spot. He's also ran this other unit of Alarith down, with Be'lakor eyeing up both the objective and the Alarith. I think this is going to be really important. He's only killed 1 Blight King. He's not done enough to cause any sort of bravery check. It's just, there's a lot of points. There's over 1,000 points not activated in the fight right now. You got Teclis, 660 points, doing nothing. You've got the 2 Mountain Goat men doing nothing.
Well, 500 points? Yeah,
that's 300. So they're like, it's like 12. Is there anything you can do pre-game to stop the Nurgle Alpha? Loads. Let me tell you about so many things you can do. You could just have 2 10-man screens, and then you could just have scary stuff behind your army to do the output. The problem maybe with the list that we're looking at is that its job is to survive more elite damage than what you're seeing coming out of the Blight Kings. There's a disparity between the 2 armies in that the Lumineth Realm Lord's army isn't designed to do loads of output. It's an attrition army. It survives and it does damage over time. It wins turns 4 and 5. Whereas if you have something that's far more outputty, like 3 Salamanders, for example, they'll land somewhere and they'll do so much damage. And that's coming from only like a small portion of that. Like those Blight Kings would be genuinely scared of 3 Salamanders sat behind 10 Skinks. Because those 10 Skinks would hold them up for a turn, and those Salamanders would shoot, maybe even charge into them, and you would see a lot of damage. It's just you don't really have the output. That said, though, there's like nearly 50 damage can come out of those 2 Goat Mountain men. Like, but they just didn't get the charge off. So the play isn't bad. You set up a screen, and then you counter-attack is what you really do. Yep. And you push into these wounds. Yeah. That's a real easy play. Joe?
I mean, yeah, that's what kind of what we were talking about the whole time, right? Is that these 2 mountains had to come into this unit this turn and just wipe it off the table. It's at 50 wounds is gonna kill, the like 10 to 15 of these of the Glotkin here. And then they'll battle shock off, right? Like that was the plan. That was what was supposed to go on, but they couldn't make the charge. They couldn't do the moves, and so that play failed. But that was the play, and he was set up to do it, but he missed it, right? Be'lakor being that best 240 points you could spend,
But yeah, this is the star. This is the star. So this unit, Be'lakor, basically neutered, and in fact actually neutered the one of the mountains, and then also, I mean, smashing the Great Unclean was able to get a spell off against Alvlanor. So Teclis was out of range and probably would have unbound the spell. So Alvlanor just in range to get Glorious Afflictions cast on him. If Teclis had been a little bit more forward, a little bit more aggressively placed, he'd have been within that 30-inch unbind range, and unfortunately wasn't. So again, getting that spell off was really important as well. So there's two ways that the techless army has been neutered by the Nurgle army. So it's not just a case of it's the Blight Kings. The support pieces are also producing a really positive effect as well. In the combat phase that we're seeing now in round 1, we have seen the combat over here. We've seen this unit of Alarith Stoneguard take a bit of damage from the Blight Kings. They've used their Aether Quartz. They took 10 damage from the Blight Kings, but they saved 9, Joe. 9 of them.
Well done.
I know, congratulations. So they only took 1 wound there. So, again, like I said, yeah, so they did use their Aether Quartz, however, and there is a really nominal negative for using that no one cares about. So I think that's going to be it. That's going to be the end of this turn, I'm pretty certain. Oh no, the Blight Kings are piling in. The Blight Kings are piling in now. Oh, so he's debating whether or not to. So when you pile in, just for everyone at home really quickly, you pile in towards the closest enemy model. And when you've got a unit strung out like this, that's actually a problem. That's actually a problem. So everything here can pile into the Stone Guard. But these other models, they're closer to the Spirit of the Mountain probably as you get to about here. So they have to go forward without bringing in that Mountain Goat because you don't want to because of his damage output. These guys are closer. These guys are closer to the Stone Guard, and so you can bring them in as well. Now, a good point being made is that you could bring in the Alarith Spirit of the Mountain, and of course, he's still Bellacord, so on a 5-up, he might not even do any attacks anyway. So you could just bring him in. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd need to. I don't know about Joe. Would you bring him in?
No. Absolutely not. No. I mean, like, he still has to roll the 5+ to attack, but it's just potential damage that you don't need to do. Right? He's already got this game pretty much on lock right now. And taking more accidental damage would just be a mistake. So I would absolutely not pull in the Mountain. So it's just, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea for him. The other thing too with this pile in that some people forget or get caught out from is that when they pile in towards the closest model, it doesn't matter if that model's in combat with them or not. If they're piling in, right? Because like some people will think that the closest model in combat is one that they have to pile into. It's not the case. It is the closest just model. So they want to pile in towards these Stone Guard on the right hand flank here versus towards the middle. It's just it's a nuance of the rule, but that is how it works. So,
and it's useful to know as well because you can manipulate like really well big units that are spread out quite well with how they have to pile in and where they do. Gitley says, "Bit of a shame this is over turn 1." Maybe I can understand where you're at, Gitley. I think so. Priority roll coming up now. Is that what we're hearing, Table Boss? Okay, we got a game, gentlemen. Priority roll on a 2. Nurgle roll a 1. Lumineth Realm Lords roll a 2. That's the best priority roll you can ever get. That's so sweet. When you roll that 2 and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
So one of the things that does happen at the start of the turn is Nurgle get to move their contagion wheel, and they've moved it forward 1. The contagion ticks up, and that means that the whole army now is +1 to wound. So that those Blight Kings now are a lot more scary. However, we've got another opportunity for Alvlanor to get into this fight. Another opportunity for Yeah. So he's obviously still... Both of the 2 mountain men, though, are both affected. Both affected still. Glorious Afflictions on Alvlanor and Bellacore still affecting the Spirit of the Mountain. So the Nurgle player doing an amazing job of debuffing those key pieces in the enemy army, right?
It's definitely a major problem for the Lumineth right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not good.
It's not good. It's not good.
It's a bad spot to be in.
It's a really tough spot. So really, like, he's got another opportunity this turn to bring this game around. I think, as has been pointed out in the chat, if that unit of Blight Kings doesn't go down in this turn, I think it's just going to become a major issue. He doesn't, do you know what he does? Even if both Mountain Men went in and they smashed into the Blight Kings, don't forget if he does manage to cast, what's it called? The double your CP spell.
Yep.
Then that means that they're not going to be solar eclipse. Thank you. They're not going to be immune to battle shock. So that's going to be a major problem for the Nurgle player. But if not, then he's fine. So we're just seeing total eclipse, searing white light being cast now. Searing white light, which is the mortal wound bomb. So he's rolled another 1, Joe. So he's rolling a d6 for each unit on a 1-0. He's finally rolled. So a 2 to 5 is D3 mortal wounds. It's really good. A 6 is D6 mortal wounds. So I know again, but 4 ones in a row is rough. Here we go. Here's into the Great Unclean One. Another D3 mortal wounds into the Great Unclean One. That Great Unclean One is down to 10 wounds. Wow, down to 7 wounds potentially. Nice. He's got disgusting resilience. Yeah. So he has taken another 3, so he's down to 7 wounds. One of the reasons he's mainly dead, Joe, is he's been cutting himself. So he's got a bile sword, right? A knife. He's got a knife, and he cuts himself to give himself pluses to dispel. And he's so far taken 4 wounds from doing that. Yeah, which is pretty hilarious.
Rough. and these mountains and Tychus have shooting attacks, right? So like this could spell the end for the Great Unclean One, and then they're really going to be in trouble for Battle Shock.
So we've seen Lambent Light has been cast on the Great Unclean One for reroll hits from shooting. I think is what we're seeing from Lambent Light.
Yep. Yeah. So at this point, anything that can shoot will be shooting at him, and is at least D6 damage for those shooting attacks, and then D6 and D6. So you have potentially 3D6 damage coming into him this turn from the two mountains
to take out the Great Unclean One.
Absolutely, yeah. Another major play, because the Great Unclean One again is an extra point on this objective while he's there. So if they can get rid of that, they can get rid of points.
You can turn this game around. This game can turn around, gents. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, audience members of all. This game can turn around, in my opinion. Like, the Great Unclean One goes away. The 2 Mountain Men, they get into combat. They smash those Blight Kings off the board. He's then just got a unit of 20 Blight Kings. Agreed, that's scary, but 1 unit holding 1 objective at the top left. That's all it is. I get it that it's a lot, but like he's in a really solid position, I think, at that point, right?
Yeah. It's a huge deal. And again, like I know me and you agree a lot that the double turn is such a major play in this game. Or the priority rolls is such a major play in this game because of stuff like this, right? Because like if Nurgle went again, Nurgle could have just backed up, sat on all the objectives, and not had to worry about anything. And this gives what looked like at the beginning of the game a really or at the end of turn 1 like a really bad game for the Lumineth. They now have a chance to pull it back. Although it's not a great chance because they're still half charged and need a 5+ to activate, but they definitely can pull it back at this point. So there's the possibility is there for sure, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens at this point.
See, Pete suggests that all of the output should be going into the Blight Kings, all of the shots, everything, all of it going in. So the shooting from the Mountain Men. I'm calling them Mountain Men. I think that's like there's no quick name for, and I need one for streaming. I'm not saying the Stoneheart King, every time, or Spirits of the Mountain. I'm saying Mountain Men, and I think that that's okay. Are we all okay with that? Joe, what about you?
You could just call them the Mountains, maybe the Goats, maybe the Mountain Goats.
I think Goats. I think that's unfortunately all Beasts of Chaos. I think that feels unfair. It's not Goats. Yeah, the Bow Cow.
Beasts of Chaos wish Gorgons were like the Mountain Men. unfortunately.
Yeah. So don't forget, we've also got the pocket Be'lakor. MJPEX is pointing it out there, over in the corner, potentially going and grabbing any of these objectives. Now, you got to remember as well that there's still two Stone Guard fighting over here. They've been in combat for a while now, 2 turns, and they're in a solid spot. Oh, let me just update the points. But yeah, they're in a good spot over there, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially if they're actually being pushed back every turn. Yeah, it could be interesting. Teclis coming in to help support them. I think this is the right play as well. Just getting more damage across both packs of Blight Kings is going to be a big deal, especially when no one can be Battleshock immune. Very important.
If you guys would like to see the lists, if you type ! Battle Cattle is the name. Fine, you've all decided. I'll say Battle Cattle, but then I'm like, this Battle Cattle? It sounds like a lot. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about the etymology of the streaming of Battle Cattle at some point. We won't do that in the middle of the game, but thanks Twitch chat, love you all. There'll be something I ponder late at night. I'll be just drinking a coffee, just like, Battle Cattle or not?
Mountain Men, Battle Cattle. Oh.
So we're into the shooting phase now, so that's the board. The Stone Guard, I think, have not decided to move, which is weird. Interesting that they've decided to stay where they are. I thought... But we are in the shooting phase now. Teclis has done 3 damage to this unit of Blight Kings on the left, deciding to split the damage, which we talked about not being the right call.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, even with the not Lambent Light, but the Solar Eclipse up, next turn they will have Battleshock immune for one of these units, right? If there's if they don't die this turn. So I think getting rid of the Guardian Queen one and that extra point every turn was probably the right play. So hopefully these 2 mountains can do it.
Oh, here we go. So the Great Unclean One has taken 5 damage from shooting coming in from Alvlanor. But because he moved Teclis out of range, he's unable to do any extra damage. The damage coming in from Teclis, so he's done 5. I don't know if the Spirit of the Mountain decided to shoot, but the Great Unclean One is down to 2 damage. Pete in the chat was pointing out that he should actually put all of that damage just into the Blight Kings to try and tip him over. Because the more damage, Joe, done into the Blight Kings, the more likely that Battle Shock is going to be is going to affect them, right? So that would have taken a Blight King out and would already be giving him +1 to that Battle Shock roll that he's looking to achieve. Not forgetting that the Nurgle player's only got 1 command point. He's only sat on 1 command point right now, and he's obviously... Teclis has used a spell that doubles the price of all command abilities. Such a powerful spell, Joe. I'm gonna actually say I'm gonna put it out now. The strongest ability in Age of Sigmar at the moment. That's where I'm put my finger on the pulse there. I think it's the strongest ability in the game. It's the biggest effect in the game. It is wild, absolutely wild. I'd compare it to Vect in 40k. I think there's a parallel there. I think it is outrageously good, and I think I don't
mean to rain on your parade, Rob. I don't mean to rain on your parade, but I just don't think there's any data for that.
I meant narratively one of the strongest.
Fair.
I think that's the important.
Yeah, I mean, blocking out the sun is pretty big, right?
So for a second turn, let's talk about this for a moment. Be'lakor has an ability where you pick a unit that's deployed on the board, and you say, at some point, I'll reveal this secret unit. That was this Battle Cattle man here. And he is going to have to roll 5 ups to do actions, to 5 up to move, 5 up to charge, 5 up to shoot, 5 up to fight. And he failed all of them this turn, but it goes until the next hero phase. So you unveil it in your hero phase, or in your enemy's hero phase, and goes into your next hero phase. So basically it's affected this model twice. So Be'lakor, who is less points than the Battle Cattle, has basically neutered him for 2 turns, which has been incredible,
massive.
Right? Yeah.
Massive. Absolutely massive. and this is what I'm saying, right? Like getting rid of the extra point every turn with the Guardian Clean one, making sure that they wouldn't be able, even if they, got their second command point next turn, which they will, making sure that they don't have access to Battleshock Community for the rest of the game would have been, like, I think the better play. But we are where we're at, so.
We are, yeah. And I agree with Pete. Pete in the chat pointing out that every pip of damage going into these Black Kings at the moment is going to be useful. Again, unfortunate for the Lumineth Realm Lords player. He only rolled a 4 on the charge for that unit of Stone Guard, so wasn't even able to get all of that Stone Guard into combat. Now, don't forget, Alvlanor has got a command ability that picks D3 units and give them +1 attack. So he can... So he's got 3. So he's got all 3. And the reason it's all 3, Joe, is because it's got a 24-inch range. It's wild. It's huge. So if Alvanor's in the middle of the board,
base, right?
Yeah, he's got a small base, but 24-inch bubble around him's the whole board, basically. Like, he's laughing. The D3 is rough. So, like, it not being definitely 3, but he's rolled a 3 this turn. So each one of the Stone Guard units got an additional attack. Last time we saw the unit of Stone Guard at the bottom, in the middle, they did 7 damage. So we'll see if they can repeat that. And then the other unit of Stone Guard. But Joe, your favourite time to remind everyone that these guys being in Blessed Suns is
so
is
all this damage that's coming out of these Stone Guard on a 2+. If they kill a Blight King on a 2+, is a mortal wound back to them. So this could be spicy, losing a whole bunch of little baby elves.
It could be. It could be. It could be. Now, one of the things he didn't do is he wasn't able to get the Stone Mage in. And the Stone Mage would have been really important because the Stone Mage has got an ability to add +1 rend onto units. Wasn't able to get him in. That's wholly within 12 inches. So the Stone Mage is there. Now, Stone Mage is going to be really important in this attrition fight if it ends up being that over the next few turns, is because he's going to be able to make the Battle Cattle and the King Cattle be able to fight at their top bracket unwounded. And there's a lot of damage coming out of these guys. A lot of damage. If they roll well, which it looks like they haven't. One wound, Joe.
And
he saved it. He saved it.
Oh no!
So 20 damage could have come out of Alvlanor the Stoneheart King, and he did 0 damage. Oh dear.
No.
He could have done 30 damage. He didn't do any damage. That's rough. Yeah. Anyone who's played with Durthu, those are the vibes. That's what that is right now. This is my time to shine.
8 attacks, 5 damage apiece. Nothing. Good.
I suppose it's a bit like a loon boss on a mangler squig. Sometimes you just go in and you're like, I am going to smash. And then you're like, oh no. Oh no.
Actually, the squig is a rubber ball.
Unfortunately, no damage come of Alvlanor. We kind of hyped this up for a couple of turns, haven't we? This smash, and it's really not gone our way.
We're hoping.
Wow. So the Stone Guard are fighting now. Wow. So the Stone Guard have done a total of 2 wounds, and because, as you were pointing out, Joe, the unit champ has got an additional wound. The Blight Lord, they put the wounds on him, so they actually haven't killed a model out of the Blight King unit yet. That's rough. That is rough. I'm not gonna lie. No. See, if I was the Blight King player, I would just retreat out of combat. You don't even need to fight it. You don't even need to fight. You're just up on points.
That's the correct play. Yeah. Like, and this objective again, this objective in the corner is empty, right? Like, there's no one here. So Bellacore doing a solid run move over there will get in, right? Like, you could, depending on this gap in between this the Stone Guard unit and Alarith here, this looks like you wouldn't be able to run your Blight Kings in between because it's probably 6 inches. If you could check this for me, but just ballparking that right here looks like 6 inches or less. Yeah. So like like normally if they were farther apart, you could actually run your Blight Kings in between here. But Be'lakor being the pocket move over here, being able to run, he may actually be able to land this objective and take all 5 next turn with +1.
Pretty daunting.
Insane.
Pretty daunting.
Yeah.
So we've just seen our unit of beleaguered Stone Guard who were battling it out. I thought that they were going to hold on for longer. I was proud of them. They were smashing it. But unfortunately, the last 2 Stone Guard have gone down. Pretty wild. They're gone. Teclis now in a fight of his life against everyone on that objective. And we're going into Nurgle turn 2. This is the result of Teclis turn 2. And for anyone who ever wants to show anyone a video ever, the result of a double turn, which did not go the double turn person's way. Like, here's an example. Just like copy and paste this, put it in a link to those people, and just tell them to take a seat. Is what I would say.
Is this where we screen cap the video and add it to Pornhub, where a Lumineth player on a double turn got?
Yeah, we just said email it to the Mini Wargaming lads. Is what we're mainly going to do. Just point out. What? Anyway, I mean, but let's talk about why. Again, let's talk about why. Yeah, we could talk about the Blight Kings, but important points to note is, of course, that Alvlanor didn't get to charge last turn, so because of a spell cast by the Great and Clean One, so that's what shut him down, some defensive, aggressive magic play. And then Be'lakor being put in at list writing to shut down an enemy unit also has shut down a model for a unit for 2 turns as well. So really, it's the ability to debuff the opposing enemy has been such a crucial play, because there are whole armies that will smash this Nurgle army off the board, right, Joe? Like,
yep,
when it
absolutely.
just
100%.
runs forward. Like, if you guys want, like, the Blight King list always does really well at tournaments. Sometimes it does 3-2, sometimes it goes 4-1. It rarely wins tournaments. Rarely, if ever, actually, and maybe one time. Yeah. But, like, it's played quite a bit. It's quite consistent. If you play Nurgle, it's pretty much one of the consistent builds. There's 2 archetypes, really. Thricefold and a Blight King build. Those are the 2 archetypes. And it doesn't win tournaments. So, like, this, while it's doing really well here, like, it's not something that I majorly worry about. I normally have some sort of DPS check in my army, or a unit that's going to do some, like, outrageous output. Normally is what I put into my army, Joe. I worry my Tzeentch army would struggle with this, if I'm honest. I'm not sure I could do enough damage with Pink Horrors, but Flamers would do some gorgeous work into those Blight Kings.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Flamers would, like, and of any Flamer variant. Another trick for the Tzeentch 2 is that Tome of Eyes, reducing your bravery by a D3, getting rid of the heroes with your magic, and then just letting the Blight King's Battle Shock off. Like, once you make those Blight Kings -3 bravery for the rest of the game, like, every Blight King dead is a threat to the unit, right? And that's just huge. But yeah, like, again, if you, like, for that play though, kind of how the Lumineth probably messed up on the first turn is that they were right on the line. Like, if the Lumineth had backed up a bit, be like, all right, like, what's your movement range? Like, what's your threat range? What does your charges look like? And then they just set up behind because they were going second, right? Like, if they could have been given the first turn if they were too far back, and then just sat on 2 objectives, potentially pushed up to the middle, and guarded the middle with 2 of the mountain goats. Like, that would have been a much different play, but instead they decided to stay on the line, take that first turn charge, and it's not been working out for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think
that movement being huge.
I think a good conversation as we go through the next 2 rounds today and then the 2 rounds tomorrow, because don't forget it's a 5-round event here at the Battle of Copenhagen. So this is just round 1. The thing not to forget, of course, is that this is going to be a good conversation when we see these other armies play. We might see some, like, real MSU pick plays in the future. And you ask yourself, what does an army like that do into an army like this? I think that's always an interesting conversation. Like, and when we see some of these more like finesse and delicate armies playing in the future, and ultimately some of the armies that I think that will probably take the event out, you ask yourself, how's that going to work? I think it'll be really interesting to see. Really, really interesting to see. So I think this is a good setup for the tournament for us to have conversations about MSU versus like big DPS Czech armies. And worth watching for that conversation alone in some situations.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that both of these lists, interestingly enough, are pretty close to what you'd consider a gatekeeper army, right? Like, in order to go 5-0, you'd have to be able to beat one of these two lists, because you'd see it somewhere along the line, right? Whether it's something that's just too many wounds for you to deal with, or something that has a bunch of high damage attacks. Like you have to build your list in order to play against at least one of them and try to survive against the other, right? Like it's that's where the beauty of list building comes in, and then the first turn deployment is huge for those lists as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is definitely like an interesting list. Watching two gatekeepers battle it out round one.
Yeah, I think really important for the conversation over the next few games. And if you're watching it back on YouTube and you are watching through, interesting. I'm excited to see how I feel about this game when I get to round 5 tomorrow. As part of that kind of like overarching conversation. All of these games and live tournament coverage always just a good chat for developing, your kind of like knowledge of the game generally, and also where list building works. Tavi Gain in the chat is just saying MSU styles often rely on board control, utilizing pile-ins to great effect, both offensively and defensively. It's how I play with my new Sinesh stuff currently at the moment. So yeah, like, and then having armies that really can not counter that, but are just a problem in these Blight King bricks. And you see it in Savage or bricks as well. I think that's also really, really important. And then some armies somehow have hordes, and they also have MSU in Seraphon, which is fairly unique.
But I mean, what does Seraphon not have, right?
Yes, yeah. That's true. So in this situation, Seraphon have all of the tools, right? So we're in this
horde clearing.
Yeah, we're in this combat phase now. We're seeing these Blight Kings smash into all of these other opposing units. We've seen one wound, into the Stone Guard, 2 wounds into Avlanor. However, this other unit of Stone Guard, so the brick of 4 Stone Guard over here, saved 18 wounds, Joe. Saved 18 wounds. Don't forget, they've got a re-rollable save because of the temple. They also popped their Aether Quartz. Wow, so 16. So they took 18 wounds, and they saved every one of them. And Teclis with his first wound. I'm not going to lie, I don't mind seeing Teclis with a wound. That always makes me smile, Joe. Yeah. I love seeing Teclis with a wound. He's normally behind a brick of stuff. I don't mind. It's like when you see Croak with a wound, or you see an opportunity for I think if anyone ever gave me an opportunity or an in to take Croak as bait, I'd probably take it every single time. There's so much unnecessary hatred in my heart for Croak. If someone was deployed him on the line, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take that.
And you're a Seraphon player.
I'd still take it. I'd take it all day. Right, so we're at the end of... Now that was Lumineth Realm Lords turn 2. That's where we were.
Off the back of a double turn. Off the back of a double turn.
Absolutely.
And they've lost more models than the Blight Kings have.
They have lost more models than the Blight Kings. Let's catch up really quickly for you guys on what's happened. Turn 1, the roll-off, both players are a 3-drop army. Roll-off went to Nurgle. Nurgle deployed on the line. I would say that the Lumineth pretty much did as well. They're a little bit back. And then we saw 2 units of Blight Kings basically run 16 inches across the board. And then this left-hand unit of Blight Kings get a charge into 5 Stone Guard at the back. That's what we saw. We also saw Glorious Afflictions cast onto Avlanor, which was a big play. Going into Lumineth Realm Lords turn 1, we cast... we got Protection of Teclis off, and most importantly, we got the spell to make CP cost twice as much. And then we saw both of the mountain men fail the charge to get into combat. Unfortunately, we got the double though. Then both went in. We did get a unit of Stone Guard go in and do 7 damage. We got the combat. We got the combat in turn 2. But Be'lakor, having debuffed this Alaris Spirit of the Mountain, slowed him down and hasn't actually done any combat yet.
Yeah, and then the one mountain that did get in did 0 damage.
0 damage.
Maybe he did 2.
Yeah,
with his hooves. Yeah.
However, the Great Unclean One down to only 1 wound left. Somehow, though, we just heard that he's managed to get Glorious Afflictions off again somehow.
No.
Oh, he got it dispelled. Yep. Is what we just found out. So, yeah, that makes sense. Both spells attempted by the Great Unclean One, now blocked by Teclis, which is what should happen every single time, right?
Yep.
And then that's it.
Which is shocking that didn't happen the first turn, right? The Teclis was too far back to dispel. It's an interesting play by Teclis there.
Yeah,
that
absolutely
probably affected the game as a whole at this point.
I think that was huge.
Deployment being very major at this point.
Yeah, very, very important. Deployment was super important. That first turn play was super important. We're now gone into 13 contagion points for Nurgle, and really all they'd have to do is hold on in this situation. They're going to outscore their opponent massively, and it looks like it's a clear path to victory for Nurgle in this situation. Taking a double and just bouncing off is super rough. Let's have a look at why we think maybe the Stoneheart King bounced off Joe. Now, I think he's within range of the Witherstave, which is the reroll 6s to hit. Reroll successful 6s to hit. Super, super important. And that's on all of these models that you can see here. One of my favorite artifacts from the Nurgle book, and I would say really relevant in the game at the moment, right?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, it's in a world where the Lumineth archers exist. If I remember correctly, it does work on other Nurgle units too. I think, like enemy Nurgle units. Nurgle is kind of weird that doesn't like to affect itself with some of its abilities here. But yeah, just enemy units. So even like other Blight Kings having to re-roll their 6s to hit you, reducing their amount of attacks, right, is just a major Slanesh that explode on 6s, making them lose their extra hit rolls. Like it's just a major piece, and it's the old rules, right? So just within 12, if you touch 12, the whole unit is affected.
The whole unit, yeah. I think it's such a good item at the minute in the meta generally, in the game at the moment. I think it's so impactful. It's super good. Only available in the Nurgle book. I think it makes some armies super viable. I'd love the idea. Yeah, FEC hates this artifact. Loads of people do. I think it's super good. The reason I think we've seen like maybe its popularity. I think it's always been very, very popular. One of the reasons that we talk about it a little bit more is because obviously so many abilities that proc on 6s to hit. Lumineth, the non-Alarith, so the Venari Lumineth, have got a lot of mortal wounds that come out from 6s or sometimes 5s. But being able to make it so that they're less effective in those situations could be very, very useful ultimately. For Nurgle. So I think that there's a nice, interesting play from Nurgle going into Lumineth in some ways. I'd probably think Lumineth normally would take it.
Yep.
So we're just seeing right now, in the middle, we're seeing this unit of Blight Kings finally retreat away from this combat like we suggested. And we see old Be'lakor, who's already done an amazing job. Yeah, the little pocket Be'lakor, who's already done an amazing job of smashing down the Spirit of the Mountain, grabbing that back objective. So
stealing it right up from underneath him like a shady little jerk that he is.
Exactly. So it's all over, I would say. It's going to be a full point swing in this situation for Nurgle. They've got all the objectives on focal points. That's going to generate them they're through the roof on points. Is
it behemoths or is it monsters that give him the extra point? Because it looks like he's getting 9 points this turn, putting him up to 16, or is it 10 points this turn with Be'lakor?
It's 9, I think. It's behemoths. It might be behemoths and monsters. It might be both, but it's still 9 points, like 9 or 10 points, which is on top of the 7 they've already got, which pushes them. Which against
2.
two for the Alarith, which they're going to get it back. And they still they're not winning the attrition fight either. Like it's not like the Blight Kings are having to hold on. So yeah,
I mean, and the Nurgle is going to be able to summon this turn, like whatever it wants, almost. Like not to the like Slanesh level of whatever it wants. It's pretty close to whatever it wants at this point, like whatever it needs. Right, it doesn't need much else to hold objectives, and it's not looking good for the Lumineth.
There's nothing they can really do next turn, because next turn the best that they can do is have the mountain men go into combat in the middle, but then they just ignore. What do they ignore? Be'lakor, and who's just scoring that point forever? Then, like,
right.
They're all split out everywhere. They're just not going to be able to. They're just not going to come back from the points lead, even if we stick with the game for the next hour and a half. It's not going to. There's no way to bring the points back, right?
Yeah, and if Nurgle doubles, the game is over, 100%.
Yeah, I think the game's. Assuming Nurgle don't double, I think they already. I don't think. I mean, they could just sit now, right? If they just get, there's just no way going into turn 3. Wild. What does everyone on the Twitch chat think? What do you guys think? What armies would you like to see next in the next matchup? Joe, what do you think? There's 5 Karajan Overlord armies here. How do you feel about
that? Terrifying. That's a I think that's terrifying. I did see a request in the chat is having the one. Is it one Slanesh player? Is there a Slanesh player here?
There's 2.
You could have Vince talking about one of the Slanesh players, and then are they playing with the new book or the old book? Do you know?
I think they're playing with the new book.
Yeah, you could have. I would definitely have Vince talking about the new Slanesh book for your next round. I think would be an interesting move. I think
that'd be interesting because there's three. I think there are 2 lists here. There's an Archeon. There's an Archeon Lurid Haze list. There's also a Triple Keeper list at the event, which I think is wild. So it'll be fun to see those play. Of course, the Karajan Overlords lists. 5 of those in attendance. It'll be very fascinating to see how they do. Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget, there is another round starting in a few hours. Let me just double check the timing for you guys. It is at 1:00 our time, so in roughly 2 hours is the next match. So our man Vince Ventrella is going to be commentating the game, and then at 5:00, so that'll be in 7 hours. Get that right? Yeah. We're going to have Dan is going to be on, Dan Unsupervised. I think I'll try and get a KO game on for Dan Unsupervised, and he can watch his Sky Dwarfs shoot some people off the board, even though he's really an elf player now, but that's fine. We won't talk about that.
I think you should find a list with some Liberators in it. I think he would love that game.
He would love that. An Earlbad game, sure, that would be good. Cities of Sigmar, there are 3 Cities of Sigmar armies in attendance, actually. So yeah, there are 3 Cities of Sigmar armies. There's a Hallowheart Anvil Guard list. There's a Hallowheart list, an Anvil Guard list, and a Tempest Eye list, which is super cool. Really excited to see if that Anvil Guard player was able to get off the spell that takes a save away from his opponent and then shoot all 40 Dark Shards at it. That's just a big play. It's just one combo. You're just there for one.
And yeah, Rob, it looks like we've got the summoning points happening. We've got 5 Plague Bearers jumping onto this objective again that has Teclis here. Yeah, I don't know how the Lumineth come back from this, honestly. I think this is pretty much the end of the game, I think. Like, these 5, I think, are going to charge. That looks like what's going to happen right about now. Looks like they should have made that charge.
Yeah, so the contagion points that he's just used, so he's just used 7 of those to generate those 5 Plague Bearers on that back objective. They've grabbed the objective. So that means that these Blight Kings can just deal with Teclis or just keep trying to fight him. And it means even if Teclis somehow gets rid of the Blight Kings, those Plague Bearers are there. He has left this objective with the Lord of Blights. Now, a little cheeky play is he could double the speed of Teclis using a spell and then fly onto the objective. It would do nothing but give him kind of like an honorary point. But he could. But I don't know if he's going to be honest.
It might be an honorary 2 points because of the monster rule, right? I think Teclis has that. He does have a huge Sphinx on his base. I'd hope he'd have a monster keyword.
I think he does. It would gain him a bonus point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I know that there's been a problem with these place and recall buttons on the board, but other than that, the guys have done a great job of making the game look atmospheric. So thanks to the guys for doing that. It's been super fun. This is round 1 of the event, so there are 3 more rounds for you guys to tune into. I think we could call this, Joe. Like, there's no drama here, right? The game's all over.
Yeah, it's looking rough. Like, we might want to just see like the turn priority, but other than that, I think I do think this game is over. Because like, what's the math, right? Like, what would you think would be the play if Lumineth had next turn? Like, how many points do you think that they could pull, or would it just be maybe the center?
So they'll get 2 from, like, if they got into the center, they get 2 and a bonus 1 with 3. That'll put them up to 4. Best case scenario at the moment. Best case scenario that they could do. Teclis could fly over. He could take 1, get a bonus point. That's 2, right? So he goes from there to there. So that's 2. Takes the center. That gets him 3. Don't know how he takes the center, but let's say sure. That's 3. And then takes the Spirit of the Mountain and goes smashes Be'lakor off the table, which would be quite nice vengeance for everything that he's put him through emotionally. That would gain him another bonus 2. So in total, he would put 7 on the board here, and would take him up to 8. But that's just, he's never taken the center. So, like, that's not happening. So he maybe could kill Be'lakor. He'd probably just ignore it. I don't know. Like, I doubt he'll even move Teclis. So, none. Lumineth just don't have enough assets to deal with every objective and clear the center of the board. I don't see a path out of it. Same. Because you're always looking for outs, right? This is what you're always doing. Really, when you're playing Age of Sigmar or you're playing any of the tabletop games, what you're looking for are outs. You're looking for ways to orientate the board. And like Pete said, like, there's a really good conversation, because sometimes you'll turn up to a match with your army planning on doing a thing. Like, I'm going to try and cast as many spells as possible because that will generate me summoning points. Or I'm going to constantly buff up this unit because it's going to win me the game, or whatever it might be. Like, there's something sometimes that's secondary to everything else. And then there are 2 other things. There are 2 other things that you have to do. You have to control and maintain control of objectives, and you also have to neuter your opponent's threats all at the same time. Those are always the 3 parts that are pulling at you. What does my army want to do? What does my opponent? How do I stop my opponent doing what his army wants to do? And how do I also control and play all the objectives? Which is what's really nice, because if you take the objective game out of the game, it's really just, what does my army do? Can I stop my opponent's army doing the same thing, like, or doing their thing? And really, then it's way more polar. Whereas, like, having that tertiary piece of, like, it being the objective-based game, I think is fascinating. I think it's really, really cool, and that's why Age of Sigmar is such an incredibly beautiful game, in my opinion, because actually it's always about trying to, like, rotate all of those pressing needs that you need to do with your game, which I think is really important. So the Lumineth Realm Lord list takes, like, Joe, I don't think the Lumineth Realm Lord list is a bad list. I just think it's a specific list that works better into other armies. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And like, and again, it may have been, it probably would have been able to handle this had it either been a different mission. If this was a different mission, like, it'd be a whole different ball game, right? Like, if this was one of the hero-based missions or behemoth-based missions, like, that would be a different ball game. If he had gotten, if Be'lakor wasn't in the Nurgle list, be a totally different game. If Teclis had been up to stop that spell the first turn, this would be a totally different game, right? So, like, like, all these different aspects are coming into how this game has turned out. And it could have been very different towards like the Lumineth's favor, right? But just today, that's just not how it's played out.
Okay. Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Gitley in the chat not rating Lumineth at all. I think that a Arulian version of Lumineth could be really good. There is also another Ymetrica Lumineth Realm Lord list as well playing at this event. So in the next round, we will let you know whether or not the other Ymetrica list has had any more success. But that has got more Stone Guard. That's got 30 Stone Guard versus the 15 in this list. So it's got more bodies on the board there. And there's also a Shoes having Techless in the list as well. But yeah, Be'lakor's kind of one of the big singing points here. Interesting to see if Be'lakor gets changed up, because I actually like Be'lakor in a list, or Be'lakor in the general overarching game, because Be'lakor is this like, I can shut down a thing one turn, maybe for 2 turns, like, and it's a maybe. I mean, maybe I can shut down a thing. I think Be'lakor's cool inside Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, and like you've said before, like he helps keep people honest, right? Like you look at this list of 15 infantry models and 3 big old monsters here, and he shut one of them down for 2 whole turns, literally changing the face of the game. Like, yeah, that's probably really a big deal for a 240 point unit, but at the same time, you know, you'd want to be able to affect these. Like you'd want an ability to actually like have this army be playable, and have a counter, right? Like everything should have at least a counter, and if one 240 point model is your counter, you know, there's a minimum of like 15 other armies that someone could be playing. So your likelihood of finding that counter in the meta or in an event is going to be low, but it happened this round, right? And that's what caused the disparity in this game. So, because most Nurgle lists probably you wouldn't see, like, or at least you would think that you wouldn't see Be'lakor in it, and then you wouldn't even expect to see Nurgle too often. But first round, he just got, you know, it happens sometimes. So it's good to keep people honest with stuff like that. And the fact there's only one in the game, just like Morathi, there's only one unkillable thing in the game. It really depends on the mission, right? Because if the Lumineth army was the Morathi list, that could have just been Morathi not moving for 2 turns, right? And we saw how good she was in the last event that we covered.
So good, so viable currently inside the game, so useful, just really, really good. So into combat for Nurgle, which is just to catch you guys up with the game really quick. At the moment, we've just seen 2 Stone Guard go down out of this unit. We've only got those 2 Stone Guard left. We've seen Techless is all the way down to 6 wounds at the moment, with a potential double on the way. And Techless going down. A lot of the conversation in the chat about Techless at the moment, I feel like if you bring Techless, you only then bring bodies. Like, you can pretty much write your Techless-based list. It's Techless, it's a Cathalar, it's the Arulian Legion Battalion, and then whichever bodies you want to put in there. Don't spice it up. Don't change it up. Add the Spell Portal. That's your list. Do you want to add some Dawn Riders? Do you want to go for Wardens? Do you want to go for Sentinels? That's your list. It writes itself. And then beyond that, not taking Techless in the list, the whole book becomes really quite interesting. And obviously it's about to double in size. So I think there's probably a lot of list writing can be done with the Lumineth army in the future. And Techless is just really interesting piece. Do I have it in the army? Yes. Then I just need to multiply how many bodies I can Techless can affect, basically. Because everything you can add to the army is good. It's all good. None of it's bad. It just requires it to play. We will at some point be going to the priority sometime soon. But right now we're just finishing off these combats. Techless down to 6 wounds. So there we go. So and then we're on 16-1 in victory points, is where we're at. Joe, pretty good, eh?
Yeah, it's a good spot to be in when you're the 16. That's for sure.
Oh, okay.
Nurgle won the roll-off. Nurgle is about to double, so that's...
Nurgle have won the roll-off, and that, ladies and gentlemen, and gang, is the game. Because they only have to stand where they're standing and get another 9 points. And they're just going to be in an epic lead. They'll be 25-1. So that is a handshake.
They got 2, Rob, but
they can get 2. That's true. Yeah, it is probably for the best. Joe, we're going to cut back to you and me now, and we'll have a quick chat. Thanks everyone hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to both of our players for playing there. That was super great of them. Tyler Buckets Pearson smashing it with the Nurgle, and unfortunately Kim having a rough time with the Alarith. Do you think it was just a matchup problem, Joe?
I think that deployment with not having Techless in Dispel range was a huge misplay. I think having that one unit of guard that was alone on an objective with no support pieces behind him, because he had 3 monsters, right, that he could have put behind there to help support them in combat, but leaving those 5 unattended, unsupported, and then on the line when there's Blight Kings about to move 16 inches across the table and charge you turn 1 was also the mistake. So the deployment was huge. And then as gotta find in the chat, as Pete Pratt in the chat said, like on turn 1 to 2, when the Lumina doubled, they could have given the turn away actually to the Nurgle player to remove all of the debuffs on his army, right? And that would have been, because they still would have wanted to retreat, right? Because the Nurgle player retreated, they would have still wanted to retreat, and at that point, the actual Lumineth could have then been like, all right, none of your buffs or none of your debuffs are on, so I'm going to come at you full force now. And had they doubled 2 to 3 instead of 1 to 2, that would have been a much bigger problem for the Nurgle player.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of those points. I think what was fun there was seeing some of these key abilities affect the army in such huge ways. Also, one of those things to always talk about is monsters or those large models are almost always pointed quite heavily. So anything that can completely neuter a unit like that is like so useful. And I think the abilities that exist like that in the game are some of the reasons we see big blocks not necessarily taken in some cases, but we still see them in loads of different armies. Oh, anyway, I think fun game besides the point, and left us to a good conversation about MSU armies and about big bricks and DPS checks and something to think about for your list writing at home. We're going to go away now for 2 hours. 2-hour break. Wow, it's the best day I've ever had.
You go away for a 2-hour break. I'm going to go to bed now because it's 5 in the morning.
It's 5 in the morning for Joe. So thanks to Joe. Can we all thank Joe for tuning in and doing the show with us? He's been great. Thank you to our players as well. And thank you to our table boss, Matt, who's been providing all of the information. He's been smashing it. So don't forget to join us in 2 hours for round 2. Mr. Vince Ventrello will be doing the co-commentating with me for that match. So we'll try and get some Sinesh army for him on the tabletop. I think that'll be really fun. And we'll have a great fun game. And do join us for that. So thank you very much for tuning in. Joe, any shout-outs before we go?
Not today, I think. Was not ready for that question, and I'm a little tired at the moment, so not
That's
today.
fine.
Sorry, everyone, but
well, if you guys, I'll give you a shout out. If you actually want to go and read any of Joe's work, you go on to goonhammer.com. Joe's been doing a bunch of write-ups and different articles on different armies, so you guys can go and read some of his works there if you guys want to go and hear some stuff from him. So there you go. There's a shout out. Yeah, thank you to our table boss, Matt. He's my other shout out, and to Fish. You're all great. Right, see you guys in 2 hours. Join us. Get some cup of teas in, get some comfy shoes on, get the couch, get us on the big telly, and we'll get the next match soon. So see you guys soon. Thanks very much.